What does a real family look like? I once believed it was about blood ties, but sometimes the cruelest lessons come from those who should love you unconditionally. My name is Alexandra, Alex for short. I'm 33, and this is my story of betrayal, resilience, and the true meaning of family. Another perfect score on your medical engineering project? Well, that's expected from you, my mother Diana said coldly, barely glancing at my award certificate from MIT before tossing it aside. I stood frozen in our kitchen's corner, my heart sinking as I watched my mother excitedly photographing my younger sister Libby's community college acceptance letter for her social media. My brilliant daughter is going to change the world. She captioned it, though Libby had barely passed her classes. The scene burned like acid in my chest. This was my childhood distilled to its essence. Libby never had to earn love. She simply existed, and adoration naturally flowed toward her like water downhill. When I received a full scholarship to MIT's medical engineering doctoral program, my mother merely shrugged. I suppose that's appropriate for someone like you. Try not to embarrass us. Yet when Libby got accepted to a local community college, they threw an extravagant celebration, hired live entertainment, and plastered social media with professional photoshoots captioned, "Our precious daughter's academic journey begins." #blessmother #gifted child. I learned to stand alone early. I expected nothing and numbed myself to disappointment. Instead, I channeled everything into my work, building my medical device company from a tiny lab space to becoming a pioneer in artificial cardiac valve technology. I met my husband Noah while presenting at a medical conference. A year later, we were married, and soon our daughter Sophia was born with Noah's gentle smile and my curious, analytical eyes. We were successful but kept a modest lifestyle, reinvesting in research. I kept telling myself we'd update our family insurance plan after the next funding round. I never imagined that decision would lead to a crisis that would forever change my understanding of family. Sophia started coughing violently as the harsh Boston wind rattled the windows of our suburban home. Initially, I diagnosed it as a seasonal cold. The pediatrician suggested mild bronchitis, prescribed antibiotics, and recommended monitoring. But I caught the shadow of concern in his eyes. It wasn't just professional caution. 2 weeks later, Sophia became winded by the smallest activities. One afternoon while working on a science project, she suddenly collapsed onto the carpet. "Mom, my chest hurts when I breathe, and my heart is racing too fast," she whispered, her small face pale with fear. Noah rushed us to Massachusetts General while I cradled Sophia in the back seat, my hands trembling despite my medical training. After extensive diagnostics, the cardiac specialist returned with multiple scans, her expression grave. "We've identified an unusual growth pressing against Sophia's left pulmonary artery," she explained methodically. "While likely non-malignant, its position is creating dangerous cardiovascular compromise. Without immediate intervention, we're looking at potential cardiac failure." "What's the time frame for surgery?" I asked, my clinical mind desperately trying to overshadow my maternal terror. "We need to operate within 72 hours, she replied firmly. "The specialized procedure and subsequent care will cost approximately $150,000. Your insurance won't cover experimental procedures of this nature." That figure struck me like physical blow. Despite our company's success, we had liquidated assets for our latest research phase. The bank rejected our emergency loan application due to the recent corporate restructuring. That night, I sat beside Sophia's hospital bed, watching her labored breathing, each irregular heartbeat on the monitor filling me with dread. I couldn't watch my child suffer while waiting for bureaucracy. With shaking fingers, I called my mother. "Alexandra? It's nearly midnight. What could possibly warrant this interruption?" Her voice dripped with irritation. "Sophia is hospitalized with a cardiopulmonary mass. She needs emergency surgery, Mother. We need $150,000 immediately. I'll repay every cent with interest." The silence stretched before she responded, "This timing is atrocious. Surely you remember your sister's engagement celebration next weekend. It's been planned for months. The Four Seasons is booked, international guests have confirmed their attendance. We simply can't divert funds now." My grip tightened on the phone. "I'm not asking you to cancel Libby's party. Just help save your granddaughter's life. She's in critical condition." Her voice turned glacial. "Alexandra, we've discussed this before. Your personal problems aren't the family's responsibility. Libby's engagement is a pivotal social moment for our family. I'm sorry, but we can't help you." I couldn't respond. The call ended, and I sat there, hollow, not from rejection, but from finally accepting what I'd always known. To them, I would never truly be family. After a sleepless night at Sophia's bedside, I resolved to do something I promised myself never to do again: confront my mother at her Long Island estate. When my Uber pulled up, I was stunned to see the driveway overflowing with luxury vehicles. Crystal chandeliers had been erected throughout the gardens, with professional photographers capturing every moment while waitstaff circulated with champagne. The mansion was transformed with cascading white orchids, custom gold embellishments, and what looked like thousands of twinkling lights. It hit me like a physical blow. This was Libby's extravagant engagement celebration to Jason, the son of a prominent investment banker. I stepped into the opulent ballroom, immediately feeling the weight of judgmental stares from impeccably dressed guests. Not one familiar face offered acknowledgement or welcome. I spotted my mother across the marble floor, laughing theatrically with a circle of socialites, her diamond jewelry catching the light with every gesture. "Mother," I said firmly as I approached. "I need 5 minutes of your time. It's literally life or death." She examined me with thinly veiled disdain, her perfectly sculpted features hardening. "Alexandra, I'm in the middle of hosting the social event of the season. Can whatever this is possibly wait?" I shook my head, my voice steady despite my churning stomach. "No. Sophia needs immediate cardiac surgery. I'm not here for myself, I'm begging you to help save your granddaughter's life. We've liquidated everything possible already." She hesitated, glancing anxiously at nearby guests, before her eyes turned glacial. "Alex, do you have any idea what today is? This is Libby's $350,000 engagement celebration. Everything has been meticulously planned for months. Your timing is appalling." I pulled Sophia's medical scans from my bag, the stark images of the mass threatening her heart. "Mother, please look at these. The surgeon says without intervention within 48 hours, Sophia could experience catastrophic cardiac failure. We need $150,000. She's your flesh and blood." The chamber orchestra quieted, and I realized people were openly staring. Mother glanced around nervously before lowering her voice to a harsh whisper. "You're humiliating me, Alexandra. This venue alone cost $85,000. The floral arrangements are $30,000. Where exactly do you suggest I produce $150,000 from? Perhaps you should have planned your finances better." Across the room, I spotted Libby in a custom designer gown, surrounded by photographers capturing her reaction to a 5-tier champagne fountain. When our eyes met, she immediately strutted over, her fiancé Jason trailing behind. "Alex? What are you doing here uninvited?" Libby's voice dripped with false sweetness. "And wearing that? This is being covered by Vogue, you know." "Sophia is dying," I said bluntly. "She needs emergency surgery costing $150,000. I'm asking our family for help." Libby laughed, the sound like breaking glass. "Are you serious? Because you didn't budget properly for your child's health care, our spectacular engagement should suffer? Do you know how long we've been planning this? How many influencers are here? How could you be so selfish?" I stared directly into my sister's eyes. "I'm not asking you to cancel your party. I'm asking our family to save a child's life." Libby rolled her eyes dramatically and raised her crystal champagne flute. "Your poor planning isn't our emergency. I have my own life to focus on. #sorry, not sorry." I turned back to my mother, my voice unwavering though my hands trembled. "I've never asked for anything. This isn't for me, it's for Sophia. She's 9 years old. If this family can spend $350,000 on a party but can't spare $150,000 to save her life, then what does that say about us?" Mother turned away as if I were an unpleasant smell. "Alexandra, you're creating a scene. Please leave before you ruin everything." I stood alone in the center of that obscenely lavish ballroom, surrounded by crystal, flowers, and strangers photographing my humiliation for social media. I carefully returned the medical records to my bag and walked out with my head high. In my rental car, I finally let the tears fall, not from sadness, but from absolute clarity. To them, a social media-worthy engagement celebration was worth more than my daughter's life. In that moment, I swore I would never beg them for anything again, and would do whatever necessary to save Sophia myself. I returned to the hospital, my heart heavy as lead, my hands completely empty. Sophia lay there, her lips cracked and pale, each breath a visible struggle. Noah held me fiercely as I recounted the cruel rejection. "We're on our own," I whispered against his chest. "They chose a party over their own granddaughter's life." The next morning, we launched into action with military precision. Noah listed his prized architectural drafting table, the one he'd used to design award-winning hospitals across the country. I put up my prototype medical equipment, my research computers, even the heirloom jewelry my grandmother had secretly given me before her death. "Downsizing your life?" asked a woman purchasing our dining room set. I just nodded, the explanation too painful and complex to share with a stranger. We accumulated nearly $62,000 in 4 days, a substantial sum, but still less than half of what we needed. I reached out to every colleague and contact in my professional network. Some ghosted me, others offered hollow platitudes, but there were a precious few whose humanity shone through. Madeline, my former research partner now working as a nurse, transferred $1,200 with a simple note. "This was for my vacation next month, but Sophia's heart can't wait. She's going to pull through this, she has your determination." Erica, my assistant who'd only joined the company 4 months earlier, quietly placed an envelope on my desk containing $800. I was saving for graduate school applications, but Sophia's future is more important right now. Despite these remarkable acts of kindness, we remained nearly $70,000 short. I began investigating experimental treatment programs and high-risk investment opportunities, willing to sacrifice everything. I made the hardest decision of my professional life. I contacted my company's main competitor about selling my newest cardiac valve patent. The technology I'd spent 5 years developing would go to another company, but Sophia's life was worth more than my professional pride. The negotiations were brutal but swift. 3 days later, I signed away the rights to my groundbreaking technology for exactly $170,000, my greatest professional achievement traded for something infinitely more precious. The hospital scheduled the specialized procedure immediately. The surgery lasted nearly 9 hours that stretched like decades. When the cardiac surgeon finally emerged, exhaustion etched in every line of her face, she gave a small but definitive nod. The procedure was successful. We've completely removed the mass and restored normal blood flow. Sophia should make a full recovery. She has remarkable cardiovascular resilience, just like her mother. My knees buckled completely. Noah caught me as I collapsed, tears flowing uncontrollably, not from sorrow, but from pure, overwhelming gratitude and relief. A quiet rage that had smoldered within me for decades finally erupted into focused determination. I wasn't just working to support my family anymore, I worked to rebuild what I'd sacrificed and to prove definitively that I didn't need those who had abandoned us when it mattered most. I started each day at 4 a.m., attacking my goals with methodical precision. I completely restructured my medical device company, revolutionizing our approach to research, development, and market strategy. I mastered fields I'd previously delegated: venture capital negotiations, international patent law, corporate leadership psychology. My company, once operating from a small university-adjacent lab space, began securing major contracts with international hospital systems. Our new artificial valve technology, built from the ground up after selling my original patent, proved even more effective. Within months, we were approached by 3 major medical technology conglomerates for partnership opportunities. Biomedical Innovation Journal featured my story with the headline, "Dr. Alexandra Morrison, from desperate mother to revolutionary medical engineer saving thousands of lives." "What transformed your approach to medical innovation?" the interviewer asked. I looked directly into the camera lens, my gaze unwavering. When my daughter faced a life-threatening cardiac condition, I begged my family for financial help. They chose to spend $350,000 on my sister's engagement party instead of $150,000 to save their granddaughter's life. That moment crystallized something profound. I realized I must become not just successful, but untouchable. Now our technology saves thousands of children like my daughter every year. The interview exploded across medical and business publications. I received an invitation to the prestigious Transformative Leaders series, where influential figures share pivotal moments that defined their trajectories. If you could speak directly to those who abandoned you during your darkest hour, what would you say to them now? The host asked. I paused thoughtfully, then smiled with genuine serenity. Thank you. Your rejection forced me to recognize that blood doesn't make family, actions do. Your absence taught me to build something unshakable, something that helps thousands of families never face the impossible choice I did. Your cruelty inadvertently launched a medical revolution. I never explicitly named anyone during these interviews, but to anyone who had witnessed me standing alone in that obscene celebration while my child lay dying, they knew precisely who I meant. After the broadcast aired, my story spread with wildfire intensity. Major medical journals and business publications picked up the narrative. People quickly connected the details, identifying me as Alexandra Morrison, daughter of socialite Diana Morrison and sister of Libby Morrison. An anonymous Twitter account reposted a segment from my interview with the explosive caption, "Boston socialite splurged $350,000 on daughter's engagement party but refused $150,000 to save dying granddaughter. Now their abandoned daughter is worth $80 million. The post accumulated over 2 million shares within 48 hours. Almost immediately, my mother's high-end boutique began receiving scathing online reviews. Long-standing clients publicly canceled accounts. Multiple luxury brands announced they were severing partnership ties. Society figures who had once vied for invitations to Diana's events quietly unfollowed her on social media. Within 10 days, the boutique closed for renovations, a transparent euphemism for financial collapse. Then there was Libby. Jason, her investment banker fiancé, made no public statement. He simply removed all evidence of their relationship from his profiles, cancelled their wedding venue, and returned to London. Sources told me he had read the articles, questioned my mother directly, and when she attempted to justify her actions, he ended their engagement on the spot. Libby called late one night, her voice raw with fury. "Alex, what the hell have you done to us?" I shared my experience. "You made yourself the villain on national television. You've destroyed our family's reputation." "I didn't destroy anything, Libby. I simply told my truth without naming names. If the truth ruins your reputation, perhaps the problem isn't with the truth." 3 weeks later, a cream-colored envelope arrived at my office, bearing my mother's distinctive monogram stationery, her usually perfect handwriting now visibly trembling. "Alexandra, we have lost everything. The boutique is bankrupt. Libby's career is in shambles. Our social standing is irreparably damaged. I'm not writing to place blame. I'm writing because I have nowhere else to turn. We were terribly wrong, I recognize that now. But please, if any compassion remains in your heart, help your family." I read that letter repeatedly that night, memories flooding back, being dismissed at that obscene party, watching Sophia struggling for each breath, selling my life's work to save my child when my own mother wouldn't spare a fraction of a party budget. "Alexandra? It's your mother." The voice on my office line was barely recognizable. 15 years had passed since I'd heard it last. I said nothing, waiting. "I'm calling because we're desperate. The bank is foreclosing on our last property tomorrow. We've lost everything else. I wouldn't disturb you, but we need $200,000 to stop the proceedings. After this, I promise we'll never ask for anything again." A soft, knowing laugh escaped my lips, not cruel, not amused, just acknowledging the symmetry of life. "Mother," I said evenly, "do you recall the last time I begged you for help? When my 9-year-old daughter was dying and needed life-saving surgery?" Silence stretched across the connection, followed by a shuddering exhale. "I remember. I was terribly wrong, Alexandra. I was blinded by superficial things. I didn't understand what was truly at stake." "Didn't understand?" My voice dropped to absolute zero. "A child's heart was failing, and you said you couldn't help because of a party." "I'm sorry," she whispered, her composure finally shattering. "Nothing can erase what I did, but we're still family." Family? The word felt foreign on my tongue. Family doesn't choose social media moments over a child's heartbeat. Family doesn't raise champagne toasts while their grandchild struggles to breathe. A pause, then barely audible. "Will you help us?" "Yes," I replied coolly, "but with one condition. You and Libby must come to my office to receive it. In person." 2 days later, they entered my company's executive floor. On my desk sat a sleek titanium briefcase containing exactly $200,000. The women who entered barely resembled the imperious figures from my memory. My mother appeared 20 years older than her actual age, her designer clothes replaced by worn department store attire. Libby's once perfect features were hardened by bitterness and financial strain. "Here is the money you requested," I stated, each word precisely measured. Not because I harbor any familial sentiment, but because I refuse to let anyone become homeless, even those who abandoned my child. Mother reached trembling fingers toward the case, but I raised my hand. "One moment. Before you take this money, understand this: once you leave this building, our connection permanently ends. No contact. No reconciliation attempts. No holiday cards." "Alexandra, you can't mean that." Mother's voice broke with genuine anguish. "I can," I interrupted firmly, "and I must. I've built a life protecting those who truly constitute my family, Noah, Sophia, and the people who stood by us when it mattered. Meanwhile, what did you do when your grandchild's heart was failing?" Only silence answered, punctuated by stifled sobs. I nodded to my executive assistant. Please show our visitors out. Libby clutched the case as they departed without farewell words. As the door closed behind them, I gazed at my hands, steady, resolute, at peace, as the final connection to my past was permanently severed. That evening, when I told Noah about what happened at my office with my mother and sister, he didn't judge my decision. He simply interlaced his fingers with mine and squeezed gently. You made the only choice that protects our family's future. Your strength continually amazes me. I nodded silently, understanding deep in my soul that this wasn't really a triumph, merely the final acknowledgement that some bonds have been fractured beyond any possibility of repair. I had offered financial salvation, but I had also definitively chosen to preserve what had become most precious to me, my hard-won inner peace. The security system chimed as I was reviewing research data in my home office. The surveillance feed showed two disheveled figures at my front gate, my mother and Libby, looking desperate and aged beyond their years. How did they find my address? I whispered to myself, watching them frantically pressing the intercom button. I hadn't spoken to them since that day in my office 15 years ago. Now they stood at the entrance to my estate, clutching what appeared to be faded photographs and small packages. Against my better judgment, I buzzed them in, meeting them at the door before they could disturb Sophia, who was studying for her cardiology boards upstairs. Alexandra, my mother gasped, her once commanding voice now trembling. We've been trying to reach you for years. Why are you here? I asked coldly. I made the terms of our arrangement perfectly clear. We have nowhere else to go, Libby whispered. We've lost everything. We just need somewhere to stay for a few days until... No, I cut her off, but something in their desperation made me step aside. You can come in for 10 minutes. That's all. As they entered my foyer, both women froze completely, their eyes widening in shock. Along the entire wall of my grand entrance hall stood floor-to-ceiling shelves containing hundreds of unopened letters, packages, and cards, all bearing their return addresses, all with their postmarks visible, all untouched. You never opened any of them? My mother's voice cracked as she approached the nearest shelf, touching an envelope dated 14 years earlier. Not a single one, I replied evenly. Every birthday card, every Christmas gift, every apology letter, I kept them all to remind myself of the boundary I needed to maintain. Libby collapsed to her knees before the physical manifestation of 15 years of ignored pleas. There must be thousands. 3,417, to be exact, I said. Every week for 15 years. I never blocked your addresses. I just chose never to engage. Today, every morning I wake up in a home resonating with genuine warmth and authentic connection. Sophia, now 24 and in her cardiology residency, starts each day by stopping by my bedroom, embracing me tightly while whispering, I had the coolest dream last night. You were in an operating room, Mom, and your hands were literally glowing as you fixed broken hearts. Those simple words reaffirmed that every excruciating decision I made was unquestionably correct. Perhaps I'm not particularly strong, I'm simply someone who finally learned to stand firmly not just for myself, but for the true family I built from nothing but determination and a heart that refused to surrender its capacity for genuine connection. If you've watched this far into my story, I have a question that deserves honest reflection. When those who once abandoned you in your darkest hour eventually return seeking assistance, what would your response be? Would you provide help to demonstrate your moral superiority, or would you protect your hard-earned peace by refusing to reopen those painful wounds? I share this experience not out of vengeance, not to wallow in past injuries, and certainly not to elicit pity. I share it because countless others have faced similar betrayals from those who should have loved them unconditionally, people who endured toxic relationships simply because society taught them that blood ties supersede all other considerations. The truth I've discovered is profoundly liberating. Not everyone who shares your genetic material constitutes family, and sometimes the most compassionate choice, for yourself and for those who truly love you, is simply to walk away without guilt or regret. If you found value in my story, please consider subscribing to this channel and giving this video a thumbs up. Your support helps others find these perspectives that might change their lives too.